My beautiful people, this is Deborah Wilson, also known as Seer Junda from Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and you are listening to the SSW Network.
Star Wars action figures collection, each sold separately.
He found out that Vader was his father, too.
Millennium Falcon that you put together. Batteries not included.
We pushed you over the edge, Chris.
Come to the dark side. Come to the dark side. We have alcohol.
We're in trouble. Let's get out of here.
I'm an asshole, just so everybody knows.
Want my droid? Sure, what you got?
It's R5D4 and the power droid.
No.
Action figures each sold separately.
And may the Force be with you always.
Well, welcome to Force Connect, the live Friday night Star Wars fan conversation. We are hanging out, as we always do every Friday night, talking about our favorite topic, the thing we spend too much time on, the thing that Chris, Nick, and I have been obsessed with since we were little children. When those commercials that you saw in the intro were new commercials, we've been doing this way too long. But hey, Nick, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. As you said, hanging out, ready to do the thing I love to do best that my family doesn't understand, which is talk about Star Wars.
Right. In a way, it's kind of better that they don't understand, because then they'd want to be on the podcast. And I love them. I do. Your family's great. My family's great. I just don't. I just can't do it.
It's my time.
This is me time. This is me time.
That's right.
Chris, how's your me time going? How are you doing?
Pete.
Yes.
Good Lord, man, I'm doing good.
Okay, good. I'm on the edge of my seat when I ask you. I'm like, where's this gonna go? And then I gotta be honest, Chris. You know, I love you. I know we've been friends for a while, but I'm never sure if you really are as good as you say you are. But I'll tell you what, you pitch it, and you sell it, and that's honestly really all. I do my best.
I'm a performer. So.
You are a performer for sure. Well, hey, so we got an interesting and fun show tonight to do. We're going to hit some news headlines. Once again, Star Wars is back, and so is the news and the rumors and the conversations going on. So we're going to spend some time talking about that, and then we are going to get to talking about some of the stuff that has been inspired by Star Wars as we're coming up this week, the 22nd, I believe, or maybe this is 21st, I'm not sure. Rebel Moon by Zack Snyder is going to drop on Netflix. It is originally it was pitched as a Star Wars story that Disney said, you know what, we can do without the boobs and the blood. And so Zack said, I'll do it myself. And so, but what it did, it sort of spawned and inspired the three of us to say, wait a minute, there has been a lot of stuff that has come out over the years that was inspired by Star Wars. And there was some really weird and fun and some really great stuff over that time. So we're going to go over that this afternoon, whatever. I don't know, whenever you're listening to this or watching it is evening. Clearly I've had a beer or two already. So the slipping up just a little bit. But before we go much further, I do want to do our housekeeping as we do every week. Make sure to follow us at the SSW Network, wherever you are on social media. You're probably on places we are not, but we're doing our best. We are on Twitter. We are on TikTok. We're on Facebook. We're on Threads. Technically, you know what? Here's an assignment. If anybody knows a piece of software or an app that allows me to post the stuff that we post on our social media on Twitter to everything else, let me know what that is so I can just do it in one place. I don't have the patience or the
Sweet monkey or something like that.
Sweet monkey.
I don't know. I'm making up words right now.
That's you know what? And if it's not, we're going to start a company tomorrow called Sweet Monkey, and it's going to be it's going to be the next big thing. But yes, so we're on all those social media places, but the best place to go is the sswnetwork.com, so you can find the links to all that. And you can also find links to our merch shop, where if you use the code SHILL15 or even Connect15, you get 15% off. We're running some sales on some special and some specific merch, which you saw at the top of the show, some very specific things. And of course, my favorite shirt, and it's the Woke Up and Watch Star Wars t-shirt and mug. That's all on sale right now over at our merch store. And you can also become an SSW patron when you go there for as little as $3 a month. When we do the recording of the Around the Galaxy podcast, where we do interviews with the people behind the fandom, if you are a patron, you get a special link to be part of the live virtual audience when we do those interviews. Recently, we've spoken to Arda Ocal from ESPN. We spoke to Alex Robinson from Star Wars Minute. We also spoke to these little known guys, Adam F. Goldberg from the Goldbergs, and Jeremy Kuhn from Napoleon Dynamite, and of course our friend Kevin Newman from Fanboys. They did the Disturbance in the Force movie, which is out now. It is out now. Chris, have you had a chance to see it yet?
Not yet.
Oh man. Here's what we're going to do. Maybe next week. Here's your assignment, Chris. I'm giving out assignments to everybody. I'm in management mode right now, and I need a full report. I need your TPS reports. But let's talk about a Disturbance in the Force next week if we can, because I don't think Nick's going to be with us. So let's try to check that out. It's on Amazon. You can digital download it, or you can buy the Blu-ray on Amazon and various other places. So check that out. I've plugged our friends. I've plugged us. I guess that means it's time for a toast. So let me turn it over to our resident expert in all things drinking, Mr. Nick Mielke.
I don't know if we should lean too hard into handing out titles like that for me. I have to public facing job in life, just like everyone else. Yeah, it is time for a toast, and it is still December. It is still Darthcember. So we are going to have another Darthcember moment tonight. We toast a lot to space friends, all that kind of stuff. I want to highlight and send a shout out to a couple of our weird space friends in particular tonight. I want to shout out Brian and Holly Fry. Brian and Holly have gone through a difficult last couple of weeks. They've lost a couple of dearly beloved pets, but they have been such great friends to all of us on the screen, to our shows, to the things that we do. Brian was down at Galaxy's Edge just a couple weeks ago, and I know we've kind of talked about this, but that is how I managed to end up with my long-desired, long-wanted Kanan Jarrus lightsaber. Brian essentially Smokey and the Bandit style bootlegged that back to me from Florida. And then also, and as a part of my toast tonight with Darthcember, you will notice I have this fantastic Skywalker Ranch pint glass going on.
That's
I want to throw an extra shout out to our friend Greg from Fanboy Cantina. He hooked me up. He sent me completely out of the blue. He just said, "Hey, I've got something for you. What's your address?" And he was out at Skywalker Ranch and sent me this beautiful pint glass. So we're going to use that tonight for our Darthcember. So to all of the space friends, both in the chat and around the world, traveling, hanging out, all that good stuff, I raise my glass to all of you, to both of you gentlemen on the screen. I'm going to go ahead and just add the video clip to the screen because it'll probably start playing immediately. So here we go. Oh, and one extra shout out.
What's that?
The man who can't be here tonight, Angry Tasty Cakes. Lloyd is in the chat because Lloyd doesn't have power where he lives, so he's not able to join us and produce. So this one goes to you and your hopefully soonly restored power as well. So cheers to everybody. Happy Darthcember. Here we go.
I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. Only a master of beer.
Skywalker Ranch, proud supporter of Darthcember.
Are they? But I'll tell you who is a proud supporter: the Shillsbury Doughboy pint glass, which is on sale on your merch store. Dude, I'm getting one of those. I know, like, I should have all the merch. I don't have.
I'm overdue for a load of basically every sticker we've ever done.
Yes. And hey, patrons, be on the lookout. And if there's any patrons in there, let me know if your Christmas card came. I would love to know if you got that yet. But with that, we are going to hit our first break of the night. My mouse is like giving me all kinds of problems here, so we'll hope that we hit the right thing here. But we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we are going to talk about some of the Star Wars news. That it's nice to be back and talking about Star Wars news again. So we'll be back in just a minute with more Force Connect. Welcome back to Force Connect, the live Friday night Star Wars fan talk show. Hey guys, we're coming to the end of the year. I don't have anything to say at this moment, but I do have to say that stick with us because we're going to be making some SSW network changes over the next couple of weeks. We're going to kick off 2024 pretty hard with some shifts and whatnot. So stay with us, and we are going to share some really cool stuff. We're gonna
one reminder.
Yes.
One thing we have announced. Sorry to jump in. One thing we have announced and started talking just a little bit about is Podathon.
Oh, yes.
Podathon is going to be on Saturday, May the 4th, 2024. So we are excited. We have started the conversations about jumping back into planning Podathon. Of course, we put that on hold around the time that the writers and actors strikes hit. But those are resolved and everybody's back and willing to help out and talk and be a part of it. So the conversations have started, the ball is rolling, and I can't wait for this year's Podathon, especially on Star Wars Day or one of the Star Wars days, depending on if you're Orthodox or not.
Orthodox Star Wars. And by the way, keep your eye out on social media. Follow either ATGcast or Will's Pod or Chris Ryons or Bro Axiom or even the Podathon on social media. We are probably for those that keep track of this sort of thing, we're probably going to open up the donation page in the next week, which will allow you to make, if you want to make 2 donations from a tax purpose perspective, you'll be able to do one this year and then one as we get closer on May the 4th. So all that stuff is coming up. It's going to be really exciting. We are excited to bring that to you as always. And I would say that counts as news. I mean, Podathon has had some of the biggest names in Star Wars. We had the cast of Andor. We've had Ryan Johnson. We've had Seth Green. We've had Shelby Young. We've had Gary Whitta. We've had Charles Soule is like a regular on Bro Axiom.
Chris's best friend.
So I would call Podathon Star Wars news. I think
Absolutely.
I'm gonna go out on that list. It was covered by Star Wars Newsnet a couple of years ago. So it's Star Wars news.
Stuff.
But speaking of Star Wars news, we're each going to pick up a headline. We're going to start with Chris. Chris, there was a headline about Darth Vader himself this past week. What do you got?
Yeah, well, Hayden Christensen was talking to Dagobah Dispatch podcast about, whether or not he returned, if given a chance. And I mean, I took the question, the whole exchange as, hey, if Lucasfilm gave you a bunch of money, would you would you accept it? He's like, yeah, I would totally accept it. Absolutely. I love money. But past that, for the craft alone, for the love of the character alone, I love that Hayden Christensen is getting the chance to really take on every aspect, aside from, the child part, every aspect of the Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader character, and I think this is one of his things he wants to do. So I'm all for it if he wants to come back. And I think for me, what I saw with the way that Ahsoka was left off with him, seeing his Force spirit, and that being the planet where there's stuff with the Mortis gods there. His story is not done. His destiny has still not yet been fulfilled. So I think there's much more to the Anakin story now. So I hope he comes back. So there's so much more to have with him. Absolutely.
One of the things that struck me about that interview, first of all, if you're not listening to Dagobah Dispatch, you really should, because it comes straight from EW, which means if the actor appears in an EW story, they're probably shuttling them off to the EW podcast. I will say this, and this is not a slight, but I feel like we have a little bit more nerdiness than they do, but that's actually kind of good because they're asking those top level questions. And what I loved about the way they asked the question to Hayden, actually more importantly, the way Hayden answered the question about would you be willing to come back, is he said, we'll see. Right. He said, I'd love to do it. And then they sort of asked, is there anything on the horizon? And he said, we'll see. That's that's also what he said before Kenobi. Right. And that's also what he said before Ahsoka. Yeah. So I feel like Filoni has had a conversation with him. Like, look, don't cut your hair yet. we have some things for you. Keep practicing your lightsaber twirl. But yeah, and it was really cool to hear him talk about, because they asked him also about Matt Lanter's portrayal, and if he allowed that to he said it didn't really influence him, but what he said was that he watched all the episodes of Clone Wars. So he said by osmosis, I probably picked it up. And I love that what we're seeing from the actors who are playing these characters is they're going back and they're watching all that stuff, right? And how great is it? I mean, imagine that. Imagine sitting in a room with Hayden Christensen watching the Mortis arc. I can't even imagine what that would be. I think
it's great, because that will lend to their, if something comes up that maybe harkens back to some of that stuff, or there's just a situation that will remind him or the actor of that situation. He knows what that is, and that can inform his performance. So I am so ready for him to come back and just totally round out this character, and I hope that happens for many other characters who take on roles of the animated shows and the hopefully comics and the books and stuff like that. Yeah.
And I'm also hoping we get to see him in other roles. I'd love, he was great in, what was it, Broken Glass? Broken Glass, yeah. A couple other things. I'd love to see him come back.
Jumper.
Yep, that was cool. Yep. Nick, what were you gonna say? I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
That's all right. I just think it's neat, and I think it's such a unique thing where we're talking about crossing mediums, whether it's animation, live action, theatrical versus TV. To have some of these different actors have the opportunity not only to kind of study and learn from each other, but like you said, Chris, to have Hayden sit down and watch Clone War episodes of the Mortis arc, because I don't know that you necessarily always get that in like a James Bond. Daniel Craig may intentionally not go. He grew up with it, so of course he saw Connery and Roger Moore and that kind of thing. But like if you relaunch Bond again, that actor may, if it's a younger person, may be more likely to go, you know what, I don't want to go watch those because I want to create my own version of Bond. I want to do my own thing. But this is a different thing, and that's what I think continues to make the actors so special. The bond that they have as creators, as talent. The ability that they have to cross these different kinds of media in order to develop the best version of the character. I'm sure Rosario had that kind of stuff. Conversations with Ashley, which I'm sure we're going to get at some point down the road. Watching those episodes, seeing the way all of that stuff, developed. Ariana Greenblatt the same way in Ahsoka, playing younger Ahsoka, getting the opportunity to learn across different mediums from different people who portray this one character to all kind of influence how that character continues to develop. I just think that's really special.
I think it would be fantastic, especially after seeing Tales of the Jedi, to get maybe a live action version of Ariana Greenblatt as Ahsoka, kind of in that growth period. Get her before she gets too old. Not that she's only like 16 or something now, right? 18 something.
Something like that.
So, but she captured that version of Ahsoka so well. I'd love to see her do it again. Before I forget, we see a couple people who joined us tonight. Lucas Legacy, Dan Films, joined us, and we also just saw, here they are, Leslie Bailey joined us. Thank you so much. I'm assuming that means you hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. So glad to have you. We're about to do some really great things this year. Better, not that we haven't done great things, we just have more great things coming.
Constant idea machine over here.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, it's
actually just not to correct you too much, Pete, but those ones that joined, they had the Twitter logo on their picture, so they may be watching us on the Twitter stream.
Oh, that's awesome.
Streaming on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, I think, are our main places. I did see earlier this week where StreamYard added the capability for Instagram, so we may continue
we'll be making that
make it easier for you to find us. That's really what we're trying to do.
Easier for you to watch us ramble for an hour.
Well, Pete, what about that next news story? I think that one's on your.
Yeah, this one's on me. So, Adam Driver, was on he was on Saturday Night Live. Did any of you see him on Saturday Night Live? The dude is great. Like he's a fantastic actor. He's really the baby on the plane skit. I could watch that all day. It's freaking hilarious. Anyway, as he's going around, he's promoting his new film Ferrari, which drops on Christmas Day. He appeared on the Rich Eisen show. And Rich Eisen, I'm guessing, seems like a huge Star Wars fan, which means we got to get him on Around the Galaxy pretty soon. We got to do that. And he talked to him, and he asked him, of course, about Star Wars, and he said J.J. Abrams walked me through what he wanted to do with the character, but you had to sign up and be like, I'm going to do it. And once I did that, I went to London to start pre-production, etc. The long and the short of it, though, more things that he said out of it essentially was that the story that he understood for Kylo Ren was that redemption was not in his arc. He was supposed to become the most committed dark side user in the history of Star Wars movies, I suppose, more so than Darth Vader, and that redemption was not on the table. And so for him, he was a bit surprised where it went when they finally came back for the Rise of Skywalker. I got in a little bit of Twitter heat this week when I said, surprise, surprise. If you watch the original trilogy, you'll also see that the plan from episode 4 changed before they got to episode 6. I really don't think George planned to have Luke kiss his sister twice. But it's interesting to see the way the fans react, but even more interesting to me to see that, I mean, that was part of the sequel trilogies. Actually, if you think about it, part of its charm is that it wasn't super predictable because it was being developed as they went. And I think we live in a different world now. We live in an MCU world where people expect every single plot point to have been planned out to the nth degree on the way to create these things. And yes, there are some issues with Rise of Skywalker that I have, but I don't begrudge anybody who loves it, and I'm fine with where it ended up. But it's interesting that Adam Driver continued to play it all the way through till the redemption scene as if he was just committed to that dark side, which actually now, in my opinion, kind of colors a little bit the way he acted in Last Jedi and the way he acted in Force Awakens. And you just see that pure, I'm just going to be dark side and I'm going to go for it. Does this change any of your thoughts, guys, on the way it was portrayed, or any does it have any influence on the movies for you now?
I think that was one thing. Like when I saw this news hit, I was like, yeah. Who didn't know this? Like because I know that he had said something about this like years ago in an interview about like, you know, seeing him as unsure as we do in The Force Awakens. And you know, when we see him by the end of Last Jedi, he's reached that point. He's you know, he's reached that you know, he's got the top of the mountain, so to speak. So I think that as much as fans, I would have loved it. I would have loved it. The darker, the better, as far as that goes. But I think that a lot of people who say they'd rather have this instead of what we got, they'd have to think he's the last Skywalker. Is this how the Skywalker legacy ends?
Yeah.
with Skywalker being the ultimate evil.
Mhm.
You know,
Yep.
so or maybe that wouldn't be the case with if Carrie Fisher hadn't passed. Who knows where her story would have gone? Because
Yeah.
I don't know if anything was ever said as far as that goes, but who knows like where her story would have gone as far as her essentially being the last Skywalker at that point.
Yeah. I feel like we read they had to do pretty significant rewrites when she died because of the direction change or where they were headed initially. So
and I feel like I heard somewhere that the plan was kind of episode 7 was going to be Han's movie, episode 8 was going to be Luke, and episode 9 was going to be Leia. And I mean, her role in 8 was fantastic. And by the way, it is yesterday, I think, was the 6th anniversary of The Last Jedi, and amazingly, people are still talking about it as if it came out yesterday. So, what does that tell you though about the movie itself? I mean, love it or hate it,
might not be as bad as you want to think it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. One of the points that I made, and I'll make it anytime anybody wants to have the conversation about it, is that I think the conversation or the story that's underneath it talks more to the people that don't like the movie than the people that do like it. It sort of warns you about the dangers of hero worship and expectations of too much from your heroes and things. And so, but
the meta narrative of that has always been one of my favorite things of those movies. It blows right by him.
Goes right by him. I mean, look at the South Park thing. See, they're even saying it. Kathleen Kennedy, like you dummies.
Two things in particular. When he says, "What am I supposed to do?" Walk outside and face down the entire First Order with a laser sword.
Yep.
Because again, hero worship. He's not, like we said about Boba Fett. He's not the Boba Fett tattoo that you have on your arm. He's a complex person. The other one is, it says the line in the movie, and it said it in the trailer. This is not going to go the way you think.
Yep.
And that was intentional. I believe, and it was in the trailer intentionally. Yeah. Telling you ahead of time, get ready. Sweaty nerds like me, get ready. This isn't going to be what you think it is, but that's okay.
100%.
I love that movie. I absolutely
none of them
love that
listened.
movie.
Nobody paid attention. Okay. Well, speaking of things that don't go the way you think they will, there's some Lego Star Wars news this week. And the reason I say that is I love the fact that Lego is not canon, but they lay clues for canon all over the place and things that we want to see.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All the Easter eggs you could ever want are in Lego Star Wars everything. So there was a story it dropped. I saw it on StarWars.com. That dropped, I think, yesterday or the day before, that there are 3 new, I'm not going to call them holiday specials because that's not entirely correct. There are 3 new Lego shorts that are holiday themed. They're on YouTube. All 3 of them are out and available right now. I think they're on YouTube. Maybe they're on Disney Plus. I actually didn't look that up because I have not watched them yet. But they are out. They're available for watching. And one's called Chewie's Holiday Cheer Up. One is called To New Treasures, which is set in the High Republic era and seems to have a Young Jedi Adventures, spin to it. 2 things I'm not at all conversant in.
Well, good. Well, so the Nameless won't show up in this one. They're
slaughter everyone in the spirit of the season.
Hopefully,
I would love to see them do a holiday special and like the Nile. I know nothing about it, but I do know the Nile are evil and bad, and they should just show up and a Christmas slaughter. Next year's Lego special will be a Christmas slaughter.
Christmas slaughter. A Sithmas slaughter, if you will. So the first 2, and I thought this was interesting, the first 2 are listed as non-vocal shorts. So sound effects, maybe some captions or whatever. Eric Brown says they are on YouTube. And then the third one is called 'Twas the Night Before Life Day. The summary of it basically reads like, in the South, we call it Dirty Santa. Some people call it White Elephant. But, the Christmas present swapping game set the day before Life Day with the Emperor. And there's nothing better than some good Lego Emperor Palpatine. There's always funny jokes and just the way that's played. So, as Eric said, the Empire one's really funny. So, I love that there's more Lego Star Wars stuff coming out. In just a minute, we're going to take a break. And when we come back in our next segment, we are going to be talking about things that have been influenced by Star Wars, TV shows, movies, going all the way back, Rebel Moon, everything in between. And I feel like this is the perfect transition out of this segment into that, because Lego, while like you said, Pete, is not canon, heavy Star Wars influence, heavy Star Wars connection, really more directly working together, but it has added so much to the lore. The people that love Freemaker Adventures are fully in the tank for Freemaker Adventures, which is awesome. The Lego Star Wars video games, like, I played Skywalker Saga when it came out back in the spring or whatever it was, top to bottom, until I completed all the levels, and I still bring it up every now and then. So Lego has done a really good job of connecting, doing that kind of stuff, and being able to do that with Star Wars is clearly an influence. So why don't we hit our next break, and when we get back, why don't we get into some other things that are and have been over the years clearly influenced by Star Wars?
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Nick. We will be back after these messages.
Hey, pick on someone your own size.
The Star Wars trilogy is back on the big screen, and it's even better with a Pepsi.
Great effects, man.
Yeah.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
Everyone, we've got to save the Queen!
We're under attack!
Misa Jar Jar Binks come for comic relief.
Emergency landing on Tatooine.
No! Pod racing is with. Love you, Mom.
Love you, Padme. Oh no! Darth Maul! My brains are spilling out!
Oh, joy, wind.
This is the weirdest state I've ever been on. I'm out of here.
Go you must.
Farewell. Bye-bye.
Star Wars Episode 1 cans collect all 24 this summer.
And we're back talking about Star Wars. If you're watching the live show, you saw we just ran a classic commercials from the prequel era, and what I love about that, what's that little creature's name? I usually know it, but it's slipping from my brain tonight. The Pepsi guy, but he calls her Padme, which is funny. Padme. And it's a commercial that came out during the release of the prequels, and it struck me that he says, Misa called Jar Jar Binks, Misa here for comic relief. It was like they were just like, you know what, we're just gonna own it. That's what he's here for. And if you don't like comic relief, then maybe you're not understanding the way Star Wars works. But so welcome back. We are hanging out on a Friday night, as we do, talking all things Star Wars. We just went through the news, talked about a bunch of things happening, and now what we want to do is, speaking of news, coming this week to Netflix is the long-awaited Zack Snyder Rebel Moon, which Zack had pitched apparently to Lucasfilm as a Star Wars story, and Lucasfilm said thank you, but that's not what we want to do. And he said, that's cool, I'll go make my own movie. I will say this at the risk of being a little bit spicy. I'm not excited. I'm excited for the movie. I can't wait to see it. Zack Snyder stuff, I always take it with a grain of salt. I know exactly what I'm going to get. I'm going to get about 40 minutes of slow motion action, lots of grainy dust, and probably some remixed rock music underneath it. But I'm excited for another science fiction film. I don't want to see, and I'm not excited to have people begin to immediately say things like, this is what Disney could have been, this is what Star Wars should have been, because it's not at all. And from what I understand, the story is it's very Star Wars adjacent. That said, for those of us that lived through the first wave of Star Wars, we remember sort of a whole host of Star Wars adjacent, Star Wars wannabe, Star Wars ripoff, in some cases direct ripoff, in other cases Star Wars similar. And what was interesting was that some of it was fantastic, some of it was horrible, but there was, as a kid, seeing anything that was in a similar type of universe was exciting. For me, and then Chris, I want to hear from you first. Like, I loved things like, I remember Close Encounters came out afterwards, and while that was not Star Wars-y, it was certainly aliens in space, and I was really excited by that. I remember Battlestar Galactica, though. That's my first real post Star Wars obsession. Chris, do you remember what sort of Star Wars adjacent stuff you got into as a result? Things that came out that were Star Wars ish?
If I could tell that they were ripoffs, I didn't like them, and I didn't really give them that much attention, even as a kid. Yeah. There is one that I remember, and I'm trying to think of the name. It was with the dude from Little House on the Prairie. It's like Battle for the
it's Battle Beyond the Stars.
There we go.
Battle Beyond the Stairs. We're going to talk about that later. Don't worry. It's on my list. I have the trailer for that, actually.
So yeah, they're definitely
Richard Thomas, John Boy from the Waltons.
Yeah. So that one was one that I remember the most. Like, I want to say Battlestar, but I know that it's. I mean, they banked on the whole Star Wars thing, but I forgot when that story first came out.
I think it was 1978.
Battlestar was 79.
Oh, 79.
Oh, okay. Yeah, rip off. But yeah. I mean, there were so many that banked that were banking on Star Wars that were absolute, rip offs and whatnot. I was looking and I saw somewhere someone put the Masters of the Universe movie.
Mm-hmm.
That movie was just terrible. I don't know if it was. I don't know if that was the Star Wars. I mean, yeah, to a degree, the laser guns and whatnot, and Skeletor really had a Vader vibe to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so many movies and specials, like TV specials, had those knockoffs.
It was certain. Yeah, I mean, like something like Master of the Universe, even Flash Gordon, which were their much like He-Man and Flash Gordon, they were their own universes, but they wouldn't have been made if Star Wars wasn't a success. They would have been those movies would have been passed over by studios, but they were like, you got laser guns, you got action and adventure and spaceships. All right, bring it on in.
There's one that we watched at work, watched at the shop like 10, 12 years ago, something like that. And it was just like, it was not Star Wars knockoff day, but this one in particular was Star Crash.
Yep. Oh, I've got the trailer for that one too.
You did?
Oh yeah.
The movie's so bad. It's still on my hard drive. Like, I will watch it from time to time. It's terrible.
Nick, why don't you show the show?
All right. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's get a couple of the weird ones out of here. We're gonna run the trailer for Star Crash real quick. This is buckle up, Buttercup.
Our galaxy is split into two warring factions, our own and the one ruled by the evil Count Zarthan from the League of the Dark Worlds. The Count has created a weapon so vast, so huge, that it would take a whole planet to conceal it. You must sail to the haunted stars, find the Count's secret planet, and destroy
I can honestly
Pete's never-
say
Pete's never seen the movie before.
I've
Chris
never
has.
even
You get first
heard of the
reaction.
movie before. I want to watch it right now.
Doesn't that trailer? The trailer makes it look like a masterpiece.
Look,
David Hasselhoff.
Do yourself a favor.
Christopher Lee is in that movie. Christopher Lee admitted the movie was shot in Italy, and he only took the movie so he could go to Italy for free. Also, Caroline Munro, who was a Bond girl or a Bond villain in The Spy Who Loved Me. She was also in one of the Voyage of Sinbad movies, which, if you notice, there's a very specific look to this movie.
Yeah.
This is Roger Corman.
Okay.
This has got Jason and the Argonauts, The Voyage of Sinbad, like that big metal robot with the stop motion animation. Just bananas.
I can't believe that movie has Hasselhoff in it. And
Pete, it's balls to the wall. Hardcore 70s sci-fi action. I can't recommend this movie enough if you love terrible things. And you are going to have a great time with it.
Well, so,
yes, indeed.
Well, I love it's got those sort of classic 70s, late 70s, early 80s special effects that were like inspired by the good stuff that Star Wars did, but not well executed. And I'm looking here at the cast. There's a character, Nadia Cassini played, named Queen Corellia, which is interesting. A little bit of a Star Wars reference before it was a Star Wars reference. But the worst part about this, though, the IMDb here is they have all the pictures of these guys today versus then, and Hasselhoff is not looking good. He's he's slipping. He's slipping. But hey, Christopher Plummer played the Emperor. So, wow. So Chris, you've seen it. What's the general plot of it?
Man, come on.
Irrelevant.
It doesn't
an important detail.
It does not matter at all what the plot is. I'm not no. Space lasers, Ray Harryhausen stupid.
Yep.
Just go ahead and watch it and just have a few of these with you. Trust me.
I have to watch it. I'm gonna find it over my my holiday break. I'm going to watch that. Midgie 420. Thanks for joining us. Get a beer and a bowl to watch this.
Yeah.
This is probably also how it was made, I would guess.
Have a whole shrub with you. You know what I'm talking about.
But there was good stuff too. I mean, I really loved Last Starfighter.
Yes.
Right now, did I hear it right? Maybe I'm crazy. I heard they're either doing a remake or a sequel to Last Starfighter.
Friend of the show, Gary Whitta, wrote and submitted a treatment for a Last Starfighter reboot or remake.
That's right.
A couple years ago, and that, to my knowledge, has neither been shot down nor greenlit, confirmed moving forward. But that has been swirling in the wind for a while. And I have heard him mention at some point in an interview that was something that he was very passionate about and actually wrote a script for.
Interesting. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
There were a bunch of stuff. Now, there was some other stuff that you had pulled from the not so great list. Look, and this is not to say that Rebel Moon is going to be in this, but there might be podcasters in 20 years going, and then after the sequels, a guy named Zack Snyder created a film called Rebel Moon. Let's watch the trailer. But the other ones that you're bringing to the table here, Nick, are they on the good side? Are they on the bad side?
There are some other good things to talk about. A couple in particular. Certainly, I don't know if we call it good, but it certainly has a legacy. The Black Hole.
The Black Hole. Oh yes,
yeah, that was a Disney flick. That was 1979. One of the interesting tidbits that came out of that, Disney kind of wanted to go in this direction in the late 70s after Star Wars. They wanted ILM to do the effects for the movie, but the contract and the negotiating points were too high. And or they wanted to rent the Dykstraflex cameras is what they wanted to do. And basically they weren't willing to agree to the terms that ILM set forth in order to do that. So Disney ended up basically inventing their own version of Dykstraflex cameras. the automated camera effects system, ACES. Also, the novelization of The Black Hole was written by one Alan Dean Foster. We all know from Splinter of the Mind's Eye.
Yeah.
And apparently he was so incensed when the movie came out and it was time to write the novelization of it because the science in the movie was so bad that he was like, we're going to have to make some changes here for the novelization.
Alan Dean Foster said that. And then he did
yes.
Splinter of the Mind's Eye. It was like, the Force is
Yeah,
real.
don't worry about it. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Science schmience. So the Black Hole was certainly one.
The Black Hole, by the way, had one of the most shocking scenes. I remember because it was, 1978? Was it 78?
Yeah, 79.
79. So I was a fairly young kid when I saw that. I went with my friend Mike. We went to the theater to see it. And when Maximilian chops that dude up, spoiler alert.
Yep.
and in hindsight, when I watched it actually a couple of years ago, it wasn't what I remembered, of course, but
it was that borderline level of traumatizing, like Atreyu in the swamp in the forest when the horse goes down.
Come on, Nick.
It's tough. It's a part of growing up, guys. Things weren't the same in the 80s.
They were
No.
Well, another one. I do have a couple of weird ones, but another one that is certainly worth mentioning. Spaceballs. We have to talk about Spaceballs.
Yep.
Because Mel Brooks is a genius. I hope Mel Brooks lives forever. He's
going to outlive us all, apparently.
That's right. I'm fine with it. He deserves to. But Spaceballs was, you can't help. I mean, it's intentional. And what's so great about it is that it's parody. One of my favorite, pieces of lore that kind of comes out of the creation of Spaceballs is that George Lucas read it. And this is what I love. George Lucas has a sense of humor. We know that he peppered, humor into his movies, but also things like Underground and some of the other stuff that, we've heard Seth Green. Is that what it's called? Underground? What was the Seth Green, the animated series?
Yeah.
Not Underground. What was it called?
Are you talking about Adult Swim? No.
No. I mean, he thought that was funny. Robot Chicken. The one Detours. That's it. Star Wars.
Detours.
Right. Brown.
Underground was
another in the chat.
Yeah.
Underground was the video game.
Yeah.
So Star Wars Detours, very humor centric. George Lucas was into that. George Lucas read the script treatment for Spaceballs, and he loved it so much that he basically said, ILM will do, the effects for you. Like, he was like, I want to be involved in this in some way, shape, or form. The one thing was, he said, you can parody anything you want in Star Wars, but the reason there's all the jokes from Mel Brooks is because he said there can't be merchandise. Like, that was the agreement they made. So all the stuff about, merchandise and part 2, back for more money or whatever. The Millennium Falcon is parked outside the diner, when we get the great chest burster scene as there's the outside shot
my baby.
flying in on the diner.
My honey.
But Spaceballs is it. I mean, you get Dot Matrix, you get, all these characters. I love when she takes off the earmuffs that look like the hair buns. Just that for me, certainly as a kid, because being just a couple years younger than you guys, coming up with Star Wars, like some of these early 79 and 80 Star Wars adjacent things were not necessarily on my radar until later. But Spaceballs was 87. So I was an older kid at that point. More aware of what parody was and all that kind of good stuff. So those were definitely, quality ones. If you want to get into some more weird stuff, let's go ahead and talk about Battle Beyond the Stars.
Well, why don't we do that? Why don't we take a break? And when we come back, why don't we hit a couple more of the bizarre ones? We want to hear from you in the chat. Which were some of the good, bad, indifferent, memorable, not memorable things that impacted you? What were some of the post Star Wars sci-fi that stuck with you? That, I mean, let's be honest. If Star Wars failed miserably, we would have gotten none of the things that we're talking about here today. So we'll be back in just 1 minute with more Force Connect.
Are you a fan of the SSW network? Do you like merchandise that borders on copyright infringement? Then you're going to love the all-new SSWNetworkShop.com. Featuring t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, jackets, sweatshirts, and most designs are available as stickers, mugs, and Pilsner glasses. Proudly show the world that you're a shill, or that you have a favorite Star Wars podcast, or that you love jizz. You know, the cantina music from the first movie. So head on over to www.thesswnetwork, click on merchandise, and you'll be taken straight to our store. There's more than 40 designs to choose from, and if you use the code SHILL15 now, you'll get 15% off your entire order. Buying merchandise from the SSW Network shop is a great way to support your favorite content creators, as well as tell the world that, hey, you're a shill too. Head on over to the SSWnetwork.com, click merchandise, and use code SHILL15 to get your merchandise today.
Well, welcome back to Force Connect, the live Friday night Star Wars fan conversation. Hey, listen, folks, we mentioned it at the top. Make sure you're subscribed to us on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and or you're following us on social media, because there's some changes coming. Nothing that's going to change your life, but some changes to the shows and things like that we have going on. So make sure to do that. Also, make sure to share this show. Go on out there right now. Share this on all your social media channels. We got another segment left of the show. Would love to have some new people join us. And for those of you who are hanging out with us, thank you so much for spending your Friday night with us. We know you probably have more important things to do, or you know what? Honestly, it's Friday night and you're watching us. I'm not judging. I'm not judging, because here we are doing this with you. So we're very excited about that. Cheers to all of you. Nick, I'm drinking this beer. It's called Zombie Ice. And it's like 8.5% alcohol, and I just found it locally, and I'm not gonna lie, it was the Iron Maiden font that made me
that's what sold
in
you.
it. And it's good stuff. So hey, Zombie Ice, if you're listening and you want to sponsor the show, we are available.
Hit us up.
Nick, so we had a handful of other bizarre shows or movies and whatnot. We're gonna hit a couple more, and I've been flagging you guys in the chat. We're going to talk about some of the things that you've been posting, and just for the record, yes, Jeff Gualio, Buck Rogers was after Star Wars, and that was my world in 1979, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But go ahead, Nick, what else you got?
All right, we've got another one. This comes again. I've got 3 that I put the trailers in. It's worth watching. These next 2, you're gonna notice a theme developing here. I'm just gonna play the trailer for this because there's a lot of fun stuff in this trailer. This movie is called, Chris referenced it earlier, it's called Battle Beyond the Stars. And again, all I can say is buckle up. Here we go.
Ruthless invaders, a defenseless planet. Battle beyond the stars. A lone youth escapes on a last-ditch mission that begins at the edge of the universe. Oh no. The story of a boy who finds more than he expected. There. And all he can handle.
Does your species have kissing?
Oh, yes. We have that. Try one. That's a hot dog. It comes from Earth. Do you like it?
There's no dog in this. Soybean meal, niacin, dextrose, and sodium nitrate flavoring.
That's what we call meat back home. Battle beyond the stars.
Oh my God.
I can't even let it go the whole time.
So we had the A-Team in there. We had
Hannibal Smith,
John Boy from the Waltons.
We do have John Boy
there. Who was the girl?
Robert Vaughn.
No, the Robert Vaughn was not the girl.
Oh, the girl. I thought you said the colonel.
Oh, the colonel was Robert Vaughn. And who was the bad guy? Who was the guy from RoboCop, right?
Yes. Hang on.
Who passed away, I think, recently.
Yes. Damn it, I'm blanking on his name.
Yeah.
I got it right here.
Oh my god! And see now again, another one I've never seen. It looked like there was either a Razor Crest or a flying Ishi Tib head as the see, that's the nerdiest thing you're going to hear on the show tonight. A flying Ishi Tib head, and only I was going to say only a certain percentage of you will know. I think all but about 2 or 3 of you following in the chat will know what an Ishi Tib head looks like. Yeah, another one I never saw. I heard about it, and I remember seeing pieces of that trailer, but seeing it again, seeing A-Team references, and it just boy, oh boy, I need to see this one too.
Yeah, Battle Beyond the Stars. Benny's got it. Battle Beyond the Stars was the Magnificent Seven in space.
I watched that movie as a kid, and I look, everything was Star Wars to me at that point. Like it was Star Wars and nothing else, pretty much, you know? So I'm watching this movie like, come on. You know, I'm like,
what are we even
4
doing?
years old. I'm just like, come on. What are we?
Oh
my
God.
What are you
a couple of other fun facts with this one. This was also Roger Corman.
Okay.
Production design on this movie was a little gentleman we may have heard of named James Cameron.
Who?
And
the guy who did The Abyss?
Yeah, exactly. And on this movie, James Cameron met one of his wives, Gail Ann Hurd, who a lot of you will know from The Walking Dead and a bunch of other amazing projects that she worked on. So what I need to do very quickly, and then we're going to address some comments. I want to hear the things that y'all have. I have one more follow-up. I may not play the whole thing, but there's one other one, and these are all connected, and this is why I have to play this. This third one is from a movie called Space Raiders.
Never even heard of this.
Chris, but wait, pay attention to these scenes carefully, because what happens is this is also a Roger Corman movie, and this is when we start to get into like recycled ships and footage and things in movies 3 and 4 years later.
Thundering across the galaxy and into legend. The last brave starfighters who become Space Raiders. The action explodes as the fight for freedom races across the universe.
Get us out of here!
A frightened boy, a last-ditch hero and his alien crew, soaring into battle to save the galaxy.
There's another one coming in.
Such an appealing little boy.
When you touch this boy, I'll kill you where you stand.
Desperados, battling for their lives, suddenly given something to live for.
Things are always happening that we don't expect. Now, you can think of them as an ordeal, or you can think of them as a great adventure. It's the adventurers who make it.
We got no retro rockets. We're gonna crash!
High adventure, non-stop danger, a battle for life and glory with the future of the galaxy in the hands of 5 desperate outlaws and the 10-year-old boy who teaches them the true meaning of courage.
Don't let it touch you!
Space Raiders in a last desperate battle. Aliens from 1,000 worlds.
And now for you, boy.
Soaring through deadly laser fire. With the one boy brave enough to challenge the deadliest force in the universe.
We can fight him! Look, you're a kid. You're no gunner. I'm the only gunner you got. Come on, kid. Let's go get him.
He's a stowaway on a stolen ship, 10 years old and 10 million miles from home. Space Raiders, the greatest adventure a kid ever had.
I actually want to watch that movie. First of all, yes, Nick, there were absolutely
The opening shots were the
Yes.
same as the trailer before it.
Exactly the same. The Ishii-Tiv head
Also-
was the ship of choice.
Also, I'm very torn because that main ship that they kept featuring has two things going for it. One, it looks like if you tried to make the Razor Crest out of like a lump of modeling clay, like you just look, it's got a T-top part. It also looks like a testicle sack, like the whole bottom, just it's not good. It's not
You've never heard of the testicle sack? It's the ship that made the Kessel Run. So the other thing that's funny about that is they were like Space and Raiders of the Lost Ark. We're going to put that name in there. We're going to have a similar
Han and Indy were rolled into one for that cool guy in that movie.
Well, but that woman was like, she was like the female Han Solo. She's like, sit down, kid.
Yeah.
I
Give the guy
now
with the
have
blaster a leather jacket.
I have a homework assignment for as long as assignments are being given out in this episode, which apparently is what we're doing. I'm watching all three of these movies this weekend.
Now, there's a couple other there's a couple of Star Wars things in here as well that are like on par. One is when they said like a galaxy of 1,000 worlds or something like that, and that was one of the first Star Wars trailers. So I was like, all right, rip off.
Oh yeah.
The other one is the voiceover. It's the same guy from the prequel. I'm sorry, the special editions.
Oh, it was? Yes, you're right. Yes. Yep. The reason they made movie theaters. Yep. Wow. That is honestly, these movies look terrible, but I want to watch them.
In the best possible way.
I want to watch it now, so it was funny because you guys, both of you were like, oh, I remember that movie. I didn't watch the shitty ones, apparently. I watched
you watched Star Wars.
I watched Star Wars. I watched Flash Gordon, which frankly, if you watch it, not great, but the soundtrack was fantastic because he had Queen doing it. One of the things that I noticed about these as well, Nick, is Battlestar Galactica, Flash Gordon, Last Starfighter, all three of the movies that you just shared, they all went to the same sound bank for the laser sound. It's all got that same sort of cheesy synthy sound, which they were like, how the hell did Ben Burtt do it? Well, this is close enough.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, this is our version. And in the last two trailers for these last two movies, the music for both of those was James Horner.
I know one of the movies you got there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, honestly, this is what
love that movie.
So the question now becomes: is where will Rebel Moon fall under this? And you know what? Honestly, I just want it to be fun. And all those movies. See, I was about to say all those movies were such clearly Star Wars derivatives. And Rebel Moon's going to be a complete Star Wars derivative because he literally pitched it as a Star Wars movie. But I have a question for you guys. As I watch those trailers, even the Space Raiders, I'm most intrigued to watch this. 1983. I want to. I'm sorry, Chris is like, yeah, go ahead. Hey, if you have 90 minutes of your life that you don't have anything to do with, go ahead, have some fun with it.
Doing so many other things
somewhere.
Oh, it's only an hour and 24 minutes, so it's not even 90 minutes. I could 84 minutes I could probably give up. But what is it? What was it? Budget? Was it approach? There's something because all those they're Star Wars movies, right? I mean, if you were to say, look, if it was 2019 and it was Disney era and Space Raiders was an actual Star Wars movie, it would have looked like a Star Wars movie. And in fact, so back to the Rebel Moon stuff again, without having seen it, only seen the trailers, it's going to look like a Zack Snyder movie. What is it about? What made it not work? What made it fail versus a Star Wars?
Rebel Moon.
No, these
other ones.
Space
They
Raiders
were trying to be, and they were obvious, knockoffs to bank off of that success. And honestly, at that point, people have already seen that type of movie. It was still new and fresh in everyone's minds, and it had taken over the entire globe.
Right.
So anything else would be like just like a distant seventh place.
Yeah.
So, it's my take on it.
And I mean, I think the other thing is they all looked exactly the same. Like they had that sort of cheesy. And look, and I'm going to get some hate for this, but I'm willing to take it. When I first watched Solo, my only initial complaint in the first 5 minutes, and then it changed when the music evolved. But the music in the first 5 minutes to me felt like I was watching one of these 80s, late 70s Star Wars ripoffs because the music was like derivative of Star Wars. I didn't feel like it had sort of that same kind of, hey, this kind of sounds like Star Wars, right? But then my opinion changed rather rapidly on that movie because they pulled out some amazing themes. They did some great stuff. But I think the music also kind of makes it feel a little bit on the cheesy side. And of course the effects they tried to, it's like wish.com versions of ILM, I guess, right? So, well, cool. Why don't we take one quick break? We're going to pull up some of the comments that we saw and talk about them, and then we're going to wrap up. But we're hanging out on a Friday night. Thank you to everybody who's joining us tonight. We're having a lot of fun. We're watching your comments. Looks like you guys are having a party in the chat that we're just not even a part of, which is fantastic. I love that. But we will be back in just a minute with more Force Connect.
It's the new Star Wars lightsaber from Kenner. Inflation required, batteries not included. You can pretend you have powers when you switch on Kenner's Star Wars lightsaber.
Ready to feel the Force? Yeah! Switch on your Star Wars lightsabers, close your eyes, and go! I got it! Me too! Zap! You passed the test! The Force is with you!
The Star Wars lightsaber, new from Kenner. Balloons not included.
Star Wars. It's great in the arcade. Whoa! TIE fighters! Fireballs! Coming right at me! Watch the laser towers. Aim for the tops. Pick in the cutouts. Use the Force. They're coming too fast! It's late! It's late! My shields are gone! All right! I'm going in!
Oh, some game, huh?
Some game!
In a galaxy of video games, there is only one. Star Wars, the arcade.
Get out of my store right now.
Some game.
I had you.
Get
I was
out.
ahead of you.
Well, let's before we end tonight, and first of all, thank you everybody for hanging out with us tonight.
Yes,
We had just a really great time. A lot of great comments. A lot of people hanging out with us. Let's just find some of the key comments that I starred while we were talking here. I'm just gonna these are in no particular order. Let's see. Travis Mitchell said, Enemy Mine, Event Horizon, Pandorum, and Atom Project are a few of the fun ones that come to mind. Yeah, Enemy Mine, specifically, I remember that one. That's actually really a good one. But if you watch it, it has those cheesy 80s effects.
Yeah. I never really equated that outside of laser blasts and whatnot with Star Wars. That always, to me, just seemed like not just, but a science fiction version of like the Defiant ones, or
okay, yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
Yep, and it felt to me too like I mean, it had a good cast on top of everything else. It felt like there was some care put into Enemy Mine that wasn't put into the other ones. And maybe that was sort of the comment that I made before about like what made these cheese balls different than Star Wars. Enemy Mine, again, the effects are no better, frankly, than what we saw in those trailers. But I think the same thing with Last Starfighter. But there was care and love that was poured into those for sure.
The story was incredible.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is I like this comment. Benny Relp said, could you say that the success of Star Wars was a major reason for greenlighting Star Trek the motion picture? And I would say absolutely, because that was what
they admitted.
Yeah. Well, Paramount was basically like, we need a Star Wars. What do we have? And then somebody was like, you have Star Trek, right?
Right. The original series was like 66 to 69, maybe, and then motion picture was 79.
Yeah.
So that was exactly the right moment for them to kind of. And I think with Star Wars being coming out in 77, there wasn't a lot of way for them to know what the product was going to be to go holy shit, we've got to try and play catch up. And so when you hear, the conversations, and I grew up watching the Star Trek movies because my dad's a huge Star Trek guy, but the leap from motion picture to Wrath of Khan is dramatic. Like, motion picture's kind of terrible, but it was 79, in my opinion.
No, you're right.
And so 79, like, they're getting something out, like they're trying to stay relevant, stay on the map. And then you get Wrath of Khan, you get The Search for Spock, you get, 4, which is one of my favorite movies, even now of all time, with the space whales, because it's fun and there's a lot there. But yeah, exactly.
No Purgle. But you're right.
And Roddenberry's Purgle.
Purgle. The interesting, you're right. And Star Trek motion picture I remember actually seeing that in the theater with my dad in Newton, New Jersey. And I remember watching it and just it was boring. And
this isn't Star Wars.
This isn't Star Wars. And it was like Star Trek suddenly taking itself more serious. It was almost like Star Trek was saying, you have your Star Wars. Let's get deep here. Let's get intellectual. And it didn't work. But to next point, Wrath of Khan is oh yeah, we can kick ass with Star Trek, and it's so good. I can still watch
bugs in their ears. That still scares the shit out of me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Danny put it. Yeah, the Moonraker. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Feel better soon, Danny.
Yes. Please feel better soon.
Oh yes, we saw her on Twitter. I hope you're feeling better. Hopefully it's not too cold up there yet. I'm sure it is. You're probably in danger zone territory there. Jeff commented, and this may be, we'll keep an eye on the chat, but this may be the last comment of the night, but I can't find it here. But he was mentioning Buck Rogers. Buck Rogers came out in 1970. There it is. Thank you. Buck Rogers came out in 1979. There was, if you remember, it was actually in the movie theaters first. And then it became a TV show, which it's funny. There's been a lot of sort of Twitter stuff lately, post a picture of your first crush, right? And I used to think my first crush was Olivia Newton-John in Grease. But looking at the cast here, I totally remember Wilma Deering, Aaron Gray was my very first crush, 1979. Gil Gerard as Buck Rogers was awesome. Yep. But I remember Tweaky and Theo. That was the Beady. I loved Buck
half
Rogers.
R2 and mini Chewie.
Yep, exactly. Yep. Do you know who did the voice for Tweaky? Anyone?
It wasn't a Wolfman Jack, right?
No, it was Wolfman Jack. It was
it's pretty close, baby.
It was Mel Blanc, the voice of Bugs Bunny.
That makes sense.
Yep, totally makes sense.
Wow, I hear it now.
Yep. Completely. But again, it was funny because those two, that and Battlestar Galactica, were both on TV at the same time, and I remember I guess I've always had a thing for droids, as you can see behind me on the top shelf there. But I remember I loved Tweaky and Theo, and I also loved. In fact, I remember it vividly. My dad brought home a stray dog that I think was like dropped off at his office, and we named it Muffet, which was the name of the dog in the robot dog in Buck Rogers, which until, by the way, I just saw the clip on Twitter and it traumatized me again because I totally forgotten it. The dog gets killed in the Cylon attack at the beginning of Battlestar Galactica, which is why you have your robot dog named Muffet. And it's
Old Yeller in space, baby.
Traumatizing.
That's the thing. Man. We like kids. We had to grow up quick.
We had to grow the F up.
Right. Yeah. Right. Like for me, I was 11. Transformers the movie.
Optimus Prime.
Right. That whole movie, like the first 20 minutes, just put hair on my chest as a kid. Like I had to accept death and mourn while I
saw
life,
I saw the
there's
best
nothing
meme.
like enjoying Transformers with tears in your eyes and still just like loving all the action.
This is great. This is wonderful.
They destroyed us.
I saw a great meme the other day that said that Generation X, when we were 10 years old, we had to be 30. And now that we're 50 years old, we still think we're 30. So it's exactly where I think we are. But hey, guys, this has been a really fun night talking about Star Wars derivatives, things that came from. We didn't even get to things like Blade Runner and the good classics that actually came out.
The weird Mars one with Channing Tatum from a few years ago. What was that movie called? John. It's John something.
Yeah.
Yeah, talking about John.
No,
John of Mars. You're not talking about.
Yeah. John of Mars. Yeah.
No, well, that's not a ripoff.
No, that's not it. It's
no.
It's Semper Fi. Danny saying, "Isn't every damn show that we watched growing up traumatizing in some low key way?" Yes, absolutely. Hey, Snoopy Come Home made me literally
Jupiter Ascending. That's what I'm thinking of. Jupiter Ascending.
Was that the Tom Hanks one?
No, that's
which one was that with Mila Kunis, right?
Mila Kunis was in Jupiter. Yeah, Mila Kunis and Channing Tatum, Eddie Redmayne, Sean Bean.
So
it was awful.
I think the conclusion here is that they're still making shitty Star Wars ripoffs to this day.
Huge shout out to one of my favorite non-Star Wars podcasts, How Did This Get Made, with Paul June and Jason Mantzoukas, where they watch terrible movies and talk about them. You can't beat it.
Semper Fi is still traumatized by Punky Brewster being stuck in a fridge.
I know exactly what she's talking about. That was a huge thing.
Like Pete, you mentioned Snoopy Come Home, and I emotionally folded up. I was.
That killed me.
Done for the night.
I literally remembered. I remember my mother having to come in and being like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Snoopy's not coming home."
Yeah. Ooh, that was hard.
My God,
that was so hard.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Well, guys, this has been a blast. We're getting closer and closer to the holidays here. We are planning to be on next Friday night. It'll probably be just Chris and I. Maybe we'll have a special guest joining us. But we're getting closer, and then we'll probably have another show the week between Christmas and New Year's. So there's only 2 left. So if you're listening and you're hanging out with us, we want to wish you all a happy holiday season, and want to thank you all for. I mean, this has been a wild year, honestly. I mean, we started the beginning of this year. I think it was, what was it, March, April, with bringing Chris in to Force Connect, and it's been the 3 of us just having a blast with all of you on Friday nights for the last almost full year now. So thank you everybody for hanging out. Like I said, we have some news coming up pretty soon, so watch closely. We'll be bringing you some new and exciting approaches to this stuff. But Chris, what is coming up on Bro Axiom, bud?
Let's see. I think we've got. I'm pretty sure they're doing one this week because there wasn't one last week. Doing the Shooting the Poodoo, Sunday Night Live. Let's see. We've got BX Gaming. Claire's got her own show that Mike Roker shows up on, so they have that on Tuesday.
I was watching her play Skyrim, and I didn't realize that Roke hadn't played Skyrim either. And she faced her first dragon, and I was like, "This is going to be fun to watch."
Yeah, but it's true. And then Roke and Dan have BX Gaming on Wednesday nights.
Yep.
And then between Monday and Tuesday, we'll be doing previews of a few books coming out. We have 4 books coming out this week. Wow. 4 comics coming out this week. We have Star Wars number 41. We have Dr. Aphra number 39, I believe. We've got the High Republic Phase 3, the Marvel run, which is Kevin Scott's, the one that Kevin Scott is writing. That one comes out, number 2. And then there's Star Wars Revelations that comes out. And that is a book that's been coming out for the past couple of years. And it explains, or it gives you previews to a degree of things that are happening for the next year in Star Wars comics. Cool. So I'll be previewing that, and I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, we got that, new Star Bros, and it's gonna be a good week.
I have to say, if you're not following Bro Axiom on social media, please do so, because even if you're not a big comic guy like I am, I mean, I'm huge into the comics. I never
big comic guy.
Whew,
never miss an episode. Isn't that what they're called? Episode?
Sure, Nick. Why not?
But seriously, I mean, just the previews you guys give almost make me buy comics, which is really that's a step in the right direction. Which
I'll take it.
Hey, look, that's a compliment from me. So, but hey, so Nick, we're like Around the Galaxy is kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern as we come to the end of the year. We're lining up some stuff for early 2024. We're starting to work on Podathon, which is coming up May the 4th. Be on the lookout for that. Anything else I'm missing, Nick?
I don't think so. Our most recent couple of interviews, we've got Arda Ocal, we've had Alex Robinson from Star Wars Minute. Go back, dig into the back catalog. It's the holidays, your family's there, you're stuck with people you don't want to be around.
True.
Put in some earbuds and listen to Around the Galaxy. Like, go find there's 200 plus episodes of amazing Star Wars content. Folks, creators, actors, writers, authors. I'm going to toot our own horn. I don't do this enough. But I was listening to the EW podcast, this Dagobah Dispatch, and again, really cool because they get the big names that have come off of EW. But they're like, "Hey, next week we're going to be talking about A Disturbance in the Force, the movie, the documentary about the Star Wars Holiday Special." And we're going to have Jeremy Kuhn, and I'm like, "Huh? We had Jeremy Kuhn, we had Adam F. Goldberg, we had Kevin Newman." All at the same time. Oh yeah, sorry. What did I say? Kevin Newman. I'm just making people's names up. Kyle Newman. Wait, all on the screen, all at once, talking about their movie. So hey, listen to their 10-minute interview with Jeremy Kuhn, and then come listen to Around the Galaxy and hear an hour of the three of those guys just laughing and having a great time talking about their amazing documentary. Enough of the self-plugging and the self-promotion. It's getting kind of ugly. Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming up on the holidays. We will see you next week. And until then, Nick, may the Force be with you. Always.
Just one more round, friend, then homeward bound, friend. Don't forget me in your dreams. Just one more song, friend, and then so long, friend. The nights get shorter, it seems. Just one more rhyme, friend. Yes, it's a crime, friend. But you know time, friend. Time can fly. So it's good night, friend. Good night, but not goodbye.